Hello everyone and welcome to yet another Jujutsu Kaisen character video. Today, I'm going to be talking about the cursed spirit of humans, Mahito. So, if you've watched a number of my previous Jujutsu Kaisen videos, you know that Mahito is one of my favorite characters, and that's because I fucking hate him so much. I despise him with every fiber of my being. And when a series manages to make me have such a guttural hatred for a character, I just have to applaud that. I have to put him in the top tier in terms of character quality because, that's a very impressive thing to do, to make me feel some way about a fictional character. So, starting off talking about Mahito, he is essentially the antithesis to our main character, Yuji. So, Yuji is this very caring and compassionate person, and his biggest concern, his main motivation is to help people, just help as many people as he can, and not care if he gets gratitude or anything from it, so that when his time comes, he's not alone, like his grandfather. Now, Mahito is essentially the opposite. Having been born of the hatred people have towards humans, Mahito doesn't really give a shit about people. And feels no value in human life and doesn't care what happens to anyone, which we see pretty much every time he shows up. In the most recent chapters, we have certainly seen his complete disregard for human life in the way that he turns people into living weapons, pretty much. So, while Geto is the main antagonist of the series, so far at least, or should I say, Imposter Geto or Get2. Imposter Geto is easier to say. I think I'm more likely to fuck up Get2. So while Imposter Geto is the main antagonist, he is the person behind the scenes orchestrating everything that's been happening, Mahito is the arch nemesis, the antithesis of our main character. You could say instead that Geto or Imposter Geto is the antithesis to Gojo, which works really well because you have the teacher-student dynamic between Gojo and Yuji, and you sort of have something akin to that with Imposter Geto and Mahito. You see them hanging out pretty much all the time. Mahito is basically his right-hand man, and Mahito seems to always get some sort of lesson whenever he goes around with Geto. Probably the most obvious example of that being the fight against Mekamaru. So, much like Yuji, Mahito is pretty much the pupil being trained to lead the next generation of curses, if you want to put it that way. Jogo himself says that he had wanted to build up Mahito to be a leader. And that works especially well when you consider the motivation and ideology of the disaster spirits. Jogo believes that humans, as we know them, often hide their true emotions and intentions and their feelings, whereas cursed spirits are the living manifestations of those feelings that they try to hide away. So, in a way, cursed spirits are the real humans because they are that thing that we sort of keep locked away within our minds, or the things that make us human, basically. And Mahito, being the cursed spirit of humans, is a living embodiment of that ideology, in essence. And that ideology is mostly embodied in Mahito's abilities. So, Mahito's primary curse technique, the thing that basically all of his other abilities stem from, is idle transfiguration, or idle transformation, in which he is able to shape the contours of the soul and use that to shapeshift people and turn them into monsters. Or, alternatively, just sort of change their body and can even be used for healing. So, Mekamaru is the only person that we have seen be on the receiving end of the positive use of idle transfiguration, in which Mahito used it to pretty much heal his body from his heavenly binding, giving him his legs and his other arm, and pretty much allows him to live like a normal person. Now, this isn't very long-lived, but still. So, with Mahito's complete disregard for humans, he is able to mold them like clay. They're almost like an inanimate object to him. He's able to turn them into whatever he wants, whatever he needs to fit the circumstance, which we've seen a lot of, most recently in his fight with Yuji, with the way that he's turning humans into swords and grenades. Crazy shit like that. Now, the most interesting part about Mahito is that, as the antithesis to our shonen MC, Mahito has the shonen MC power himself. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, this is the shonen main character power of getting stronger whenever you face some sort of difficulty or challenge. One of the most obvious examples of this in any other series is Garo from One Punch Man. Garo pretty much goes around and gets his ass kicked for like 5 minutes, and then grows from this experience, normally during the fight, sometimes after, and becomes way stronger as a result of it. With Mahito, when we are introduced to him, we already understand that he is a special grade cursed spirit, but unlike the other special grade spirits, Mahito is explicitly very young. He's almost like a child, sort of like how Yuji is described as being a child by Nanami. They're both children in the arc where Mahito is introduced. And at first, he is really only able to use idle transfiguration and has some small degree of cursed energy manipulation. But his experience fighting with Jujutsu gives him the experience of death. He is brought close to death, and he gets this greater understanding. And this allows him to unlock his domain expansion. So, just by him being forced into this near-death experience, he is able to develop a technique that puts him at the pinnacle of Jujutsu combat. Domain expansion is, of course, sort of the pinnacle of Jujutsu. Once you've learned to do domain expansions, you're like on a whole nother level, basically. With what domain expansions allow you to do with the instant kill technique, basically, or the instant hit technique. If you have a domain expansion, you can almost definitely beat anyone that you're fighting unless they have techniques designed to sort of nullify the domain expansion effects, or if they have a domain expansion themselves. So, just through these experiences, Mahito grows exponentially as a fighter. And we see that he learns more and more as the series progresses, more so in the way of strategy. With his fight against Mekamaru, he's exposed to simple domain and gains an understanding of it, and he uses his manipulation of his own body to explode before he can be killed by Mekamaru's simple domain stakes. After his experience fighting Yuji and encountering Sukuna, he understands that Yuji as well is able to affect the contours of the soul, which makes him a major threat. But Mahito's own soul manipulation ability is nullified against Yuji because Yuji is Sukuna's host. And Sukuna does not let anyone mess around with, like, Yuji's soul, because that's his business. And the last time that happened, Mahito almost died. So Mahito has been forced to learn how to fight beyond just his use of idle transfiguration. He's transforming his own body to make it stronger. He's using sort of surprise techniques, as we saw earlier during the current fight with Mahito versus Yuji. He's been developing new techniques where he combines souls together and basically makes like a human bomb. And of course, most recently, we have seen that he has gained the ability to split himself into a double, which is extremely impressive. And as I had mentioned in one of my earlier Jujutsu Kaisen reviews, this gives Mahito a lot of potential to be extremely dangerous, because when he has a lot of cursed energy, he has the potential to pretty much create a small army of himself. Now, of course, this double is not able to use Mahito's curse technique, which is sort of a limitation on it, but as we have seen from Mahito fighting Yuji, without being able to use idle transfiguration, he's still fairly dangerous just with being able to transform his own body. So having to deal with an army of that would be like a big deal. Now, why do I hate Mahito so much? Well, Mahito is essentially the why we can't have nice things character. So, if you haven't noticed, basically every major character death that has happened so far in the series has been at the hands of Mahito. He killed Junpei, he killed Mechamaru, and he killed Nanami. So, yeah, he's a real piece of shit, and I hate him a lot. However, it's very nice to have a character that you hate so much, because whenever the protagonists are on screen fighting him, you know there is the potential to see him get his ass kicked. Let me tell you, Mahito getting sliced up by Sukuna and getting blown up by Mechamaru, even if they were sort of hollow victories, if they were like a false hope, it's still exceptionally satisfying. So Mahito will give me a little bit of a high every time I see him get pulverized on screen. Now, when it comes to the Shibuya incident and what's happening with it now, I don't think Mahito is going anywhere. I think Mahito is going to stick around until the end of the series because he is the antithesis of Yuji. And it would make more sense for Yuji to overcome everything that he is against, everything that Yuji is not. That would make a lot more sense to happen towards the end of the series. And I definitely don't think Shibuya is that end. Yuji still has another 5 fingers to eat. We still have a lot of questions that haven't been answered about characters like Urayume, or what's really going on with Imposter Ghetto, and we haven't met the 3rd year from Jujutsu High, and we still haven't met Yuta. Yuta hasn't come back yet. There's a bunch of stuff still left to be shown in Jujutsu Kaisen. So I don't think it's going to be ending for a long time. And as a result, I think Mahito is going to be here to stay. He may even possibly outlast Imposter Ghetto, depending on what Gege is planning on doing with him. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's really all I have left to say. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the Mahito arc coming up in the anime. One of the things I'm most excited to be seeing is domain expansions, how they're going to portray those. And Mahito's domain expansion is quite visually impressive, along with all of the other stuff that happens in that arc, especially with Nanami. So hopefully there are only good things ahead for us. And while Mahito will be around for a long time, hopefully we'll be seeing him have a big impact on the development of the characters. We seem to be getting something with Nobara happening very soon. So we'll have to see what happens with that. And of course, him being the antithesis to our main character, Yuji, hopefully the experiences in Shibuya and fighting Mahito will lead to even more growth for Yuji. So I guess we'll just have to have that to look forward to. But yeah, that's really all I have left to say for today. I'm going to be doing these character videos bi-weekly. I'll try to have them out on Tuesdays. Sort of have something to put during the early week. There isn't really anything that comes out between Monday and Wednesday. So you'll be getting one of these every 2 weeks or so. I'm not sure who I'll do next. I've considered doing one about Ghetto, but the issue with that is that the real Ghetto has not really had much development just beyond Hidden Inventory. Though you could also say that that applies to Toji as well. I'll probably do a video on Toji next, because I think Toji is certainly one of the more interesting characters with his impact on various other characters in the plot, but also the potential impact that his presence in the story may have on other characters going forward. So look forward to that, I guess. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I will of course be doing these Jujutsu Kaisen character videos every other week, and every week I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reviews, so if you're interested in those, you should definitely subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of them. If you enjoy other series such as Record of Ragnarok, Chainsaw Man, and Kengan Omega, I do videos on those series as well, so if you're interested in those, you should definitely check out my channel. If you enjoy discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to it on my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.